Alright class, in this video we're going to describe the main facets to ecology. Ecology is the study of the environment that you live in. You see the joke on the left, you have a beautiful picture of Earth Day in 2035. The background though, not so good. Also on the bottom says ecology is a concept not grasped by the monster truck guy. He's not really sure how population dynamics and pollution really work. Okay, first we're going to look at energy flow through ecosystems. The main source of energy is obviously the sun, and the sun produces all the energy needed for plants and animals and algae to grow. From the plants and algae, you're going to have your primary consumers that eat those plants and the secondary consumers and so on. If you notice through your energy flow, most of the energy, again, comes through the sun. You're going to lose about 90% of the energy as you go through each energy level. We're going to look at ecosystem and energy roles. Your ecosystem is all living and non-living things. Those are biotic for living and abiotic for non-living things that interact in an environment. Your energy role is determined by how it obtains energy and how it interacts with other living organisms. Some of the main interactions you need to know. One is called mutualism. If you're in a mutual fund, you're working together with many different companies. In a mutualism, both species will benefit. Think about the fish that live near the sharks that clean up the sharks. The fish also have a safe place for the sharks to protect them. You also have another type called commensalism. That's where one species will benefit while the other species doesn't have any hurtful or helpfulness. Finally, you have parasitism. A parasite is when one species benefits and one gets hurt. Think about parasites in your body. They have a place to live and they're taking your nutrients while we might get diseases. In a population, you have your producers. Producers are the first type of species, plants, algae, some cyanobacteria that all harness energy from the sun through photosynthesis. Remember, photo means light. Synthesize means to combine. I made another video on photosynthesis. You could check on my YouTube playlist. These are the base of every food chain. Your producers will always have the maximum amount of energy because all the energy levels above it depend on those producers to live. And it's a source of all food for other animals and fungi and other species that are heterotrophic. Next, you have your consumers. Consumer means to eat the producers. Think about a consumer in everyday life. You're going to be buying products. You have 4 different types of consumers. One is called a herbivore. Those eat only plants. You also have carnivores. Think about carne means meat in Spanish. Carne means they only eat meat. Omnivores. Omni means everything, so they eat plants and animals. They'll be eating producers and primary or secondary consumers. And finally, you also have your scavengers. Those are carnivores. They'll feed on the bodies of dead organisms like vultures. They are still helpful in the energy food chains in order to keep the energy flow going. In your food chains, a food chain is a series of events in which one organism will eat or consume another and obtain energy. Here I have my sun. Sun is the main source of energy. It goes to the producers. Grasshoppers would be an example of a consumer that eats the producer. Your grasshopper will be a primary consumer and also a herbivore because it's eating plant life. Secondary consumer might be a snake. A snake will eat the grasshopper. They'll be considered carnivores. You can also have a hawk that will be eating the snake. That'd be called a tertiary consumer. You can also have your scavengers or decomposers like your fungi. They will help reabsorb the nutrients that the producers or plants use. This is a sample energy pyramid. You notice that the energy level will decrease as I go from bottom to top. That's because of a lot of energy that gets lost with digestion, maybe hunting for the food, and so on. Usually about 90% again of the energy gets lost from each energy level. That's why in many ecosystems you don't have much more than a tertiary consumer. Next, we're going to look at population dynamics, how populations change over time. The 3 key features of a population are your size, how big the population is, the density, that's how many individuals per unit of area, and dispersion, where they're actually organized. Sometimes you could have a clumped setting. Clumped is when you have a lot of population in one area and then not so many other areas. You could have even or uniform, where it's pretty scattered evenly. And then you can also have random configurations where it's not affected by the food sources present. This shows a population dynamic graph of 3 different countries in the world. The bigger the reproductive age of humans or whatever species you're looking at, the faster they're going to grow, because more will get born than will die. So if you look at Kenya and Africa, they're going to have a huge population explosion shortly because of all the individuals in reproductive age. In the United States, most of the population is nearing the end of their reproductive age, so you're going to have very slow growth. The U.S. is growing about 1 to 2% per year. In some populations, you even have slow growth or decreases in population because a lot of the individuals are fairly old. There's a lot of different factors that determine where your populations are located. One are called density-dependent factors. It depends on how many populations are around. Diseases, for instance, the more populations, the more likelihood of a disease occurring. Competition for resources, the more individuals they are, the less each individual will get in food, for instance. And also parasites, the more individuals, the more parasites will be able to grow and control the population size. You also have your density-independent factors. This does not depend, or abiotic, non-living factors that do not depend on your density. Temperature, storms, habitat destruction, drought, all independent of the size of the population. This is looking at a population graph of most population sizes. Typically, most species will start to grow when they enter a new area. The population will increase very heavily, but then competition occurs where there might be some extra predators, for instance, that might be attacking the population. That's where it hovers around a set number. This will be called the carrying capacity. It's the amount of population that will fit or carry in that location.